Jeff, Arizona Hat Homestead. This video is a video just on my miter saw and the table I built for my miter saw. This miter saw table that I built here in my shipping container. Now on this saw here, this shipping container is not completely level. So it actually slopes a little bit towards the doorway, and I think it actually slopes a little bit that way as well. So it's not totally level, but this saw has to be level. So what I ended up doing was I put some spacers down here. I've got some spacers on each of the four bolts that go in. These are the spacers I use. I don't know how well it's going to come out, but this one here is pretty thin. Nice big fender washers is basically what I used. So a combination of these to get my right height. I use these lag bolts, not necessarily this size, but a little smaller than this. Lag bolts here to go through here and into here. But I did not want it to go further into here because this saw I want to slide so that I can push it back when not in use, so it's a little bit out of the way. But when I want to use it, I can pull it out like say, and now I have this extra back space back here so that when I go to use the saw, I can now easily cut and it doesn't hit that back wall. So to slide that tabletop, if you will, the base, what I ended up using was just some drawer slides. I went with some 14-inch because that ended up being the perfect distance between here. And I just obviously installed them there. And that way I've got something for it to slide on. They're basically almost right on. They're a little bit off center to the bolts there. So the weight is a little bit outside of this. And so far it looks like it's sliding just fine. Now one concern I had though is when I do bring it all the way out, how do I keep this whole thing from sliding back? Well, I could come up with any other way other than this 2x4 that now braces this whole tabletop, this base, and now the whole thing can't push back when in use. So then obviously when it's not in use, I pop that out. Now what I did to keep it from sliding too far was I just used a little angle bracket or a shelf bracket. I don't know, this one's maybe what, a 4-inch one. And this extra lip on this side here basically is my stop. So when this is not engaged, if you will, then I can just pull this and it just stops it for me. Now on the side, what I did was I wanted things to be this height. Now a lot of the saws that I saw, they would make both sides the same height as this. Well, I didn't want to do that because this whole thing is already off center, off level, so I don't care about this being completely level, but this here obviously needs to be. So I just did a table all across, and like I said, I shimmed this to make it level. So I'm good with this. So on the side here, I had to bring it up to this height. So what I ended up doing, so what I did on the table saw was I got my 2x4 legs out here. I took a 2x3 just to give me something to rest on, because this 2x6 had nothing to attach to other than that back leg back there. So there was no way for me to support this. So by putting the 2x3 here, it gives it this something to rest on. And then I used these straps, and I got 3 of them, to help hold this 2x6 in place, and boy, it does a fantastic job. I I used some hinges on here for the table. And if you notice, this hinge actually goes up inside this 2x3 here. I just cut a notch out to fit it. As you can see there. Put a couple bolts in to hold it in place. And then on the back side of this little table, this fold down table, I went with, this table's 4 feet long. So what I did was I took another 2x3 for the outside. So I outlined the whole thing. Then I took another one just on the inside, mainly so that I could put a leg in there. So if you notice, there is a bolt right there, and I just double knotted it because I didn't have a locking nut, and I don't want that tight. So I just ran a bolt all the way through. This leg right here fits in the middle here, and on that bolt up there, what I used was one very similar to this, except longer, a fender washer on the end, another one on the other end. Now I used 2 of these bolts on there so that it would sit there like say and allow this leg to swing out. I did the exact same thing on the other side. Then what I did was I had to on these legs here. Let me show you what I did on some previous legs. So on the legs, I drilled my hole through all the way through all 3 pieces, so I needed a long 1/4 inch drill bit. And then I just took a jigsaw and I just rounded this off the best I could. It's not absolutely perfect, but the whole idea was I needed it rounded so I could move the leg like say. Now this leg here I have as my example because this leg was shorter than the ones I have installed now, because after installing these I decided to go with a longer leg. Now on my legs, this little piece of OSB just kind of helps keep the 2 legs kind of stable when they're out. This one here is just so I can put a latch on it, so when I go to push it back up I can latch it in place and it doesn't swing out and hit me in the face or something. So I just doubled them up and it just happened to be a perfect height. The reason why this sticks out is because the hinge is in the way. I think that's why the first time I made it too short, and then I decided to go with this instead of trying to brace it up after the legs are out. But this holds it perfectly in place. Now what I also did to help hold the whole thing from falling as I open up this other shipping container door was I just used the chain. And on this chain, I have it wrapped around, and I have the chain attached right here with just an eye bolt and just a couple of S hooks on it. And so it just wraps around. So what I do is I take this one and I lift it up, unhook it, and let it drop. And then when I go to put it back in place, I'll just wrap it around and hook it. I tried to use string, but the string stretched too much, so the string wasn't helpful. This here, at least I know that the chain's not going to stretch, and so it works pretty good. Now I've got this thing designed so that when it lays down, this here is pretty much level with this. So let me go ahead and bring this down so you guys can see that. So now you have the table down. Got my level on. I don't know how well it's going to come out. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it looks pretty close to being level. Now because I have a rocky base here, I'll always have to be adjusting these legs a little bit because the rocks will kick out and pile up and all that stuff. So that's kind of nice in the sense that I can use the rock as shims, if you will, to make sure that my height is perfect every time. But yeah, I just swung out like say. Sorry I didn't actually show it to you, but I couldn't find my tripod, so I just had to go with this. But Basically, it's a 2 foot by 4 foot table. The saw comes with a little bag on there. I need to put a shop vac hose and connect it on there. And then I want to run that down and put that shop vac right there. So that way you collect as much of the sawdust as possible. So, but that's my miter saw table, fold out table and setup. And again, here's the way it looks underneath. Just pretty simple. I just framed it up with a 2x4 and gave it some legs. Now normally I would have put another piece across here to help keep these legs from being kicked out or something, but because I'm going to put a shop vac over here, that's why I haven't done anything yet. Once I get the shop vac and put that in place, then I know how much space it will take, and I'll probably put shelves up here in the front. This is my miter saw on my table. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment. Easy Hot Homestead.